Hey, this is the Nature Boy Ric Flair. And believe it or not, whether you like it or don't like it, learn to love it, because you have to listen to Wrestling is Real. It is the best thing going today. Woo!
Celebrating 9 years of podcast excellence, the King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us.
Here we go, the Wrestling is Real podcast. I didn't do a post show for NWA Hard Times. I could have done it, but the thing was just that there was too much for me going on that I didn't have a chance to go ahead and put it together. It was just too much happening, too much going busy for me to go ahead and record the show. So I just went ahead and said, you know what? I watched it and I enjoyed it. I thought it was great. They did a really good job of the show. I think that, you know, I'm going to be on the fence about Tyrus being the champion. But look, William Patrick Corgan has his agenda. He knows what he wants to do with that show, and he did it. Like, I mean, the show looked like it had a pretty good feel. Like, I mean, the arena that they put it at in Louisiana, very tough arena to look at. It was very grummy, like kind of an old school kind of feel to it, but that's the point of it. And in the matches, we had Tyrus beating Matt Cardona and Trevor Murdoch to win the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. Well, they've already built up Tyrus as a long-running television champion, and that he relinquished the belt to go after the World Heavyweight title. This is Tyrus' first title run, world title. Because I don't think he ever had anywhere else. I don't remember if he did anywhere else. I don't think he had it in TNA. I don't believe he did. But for Tyrus' first career, it works for him. And honestly, we're starting to get the feel that Matt Cardona is not long for NWA. He's here for the time being. But now we're hearing the word that Chelsea Green and Matt Cardona will probably together be eventually making the move over to WWE once again. So I guess Chelsea Green and Matt Cardona together as a couple might be something we'll see. And that's a good thing. Especially because it's going to be a chance for Matt Cardona to bring this character to light and pull it full forward now back into WWE and really just flush out the Zack Ryder character. He gets to be Matt Cardona, always ready. And Chelsea Green on his side, it's a power couple. It works. And I think that Matt Cardona has done a good enough job for himself in Impact and NWA and GCW to make himself redesign and re-flourish his character. Like, he made himself a new character. He's got his gimmick. It's himself. It's an extension of himself. It's him all the way to 10, putting the volume up to 11. And those kind of characters work. And everybody's very familiar with Matt Cardona. That guy can be a great heel. So that's what they need to do. Trevor Murdoch, am I right? He won it at NWA 74, and then he dropped it here. So a couple months after. So he had well over a year run as the World Heavyweight Champion. And at this moment, there isn't anybody else in that picture that's vying for that main event, because Nick Aldis is out of the picture. We're going to talk about him some more because he did have more conversation. But NWA, they had a good 600, 700 people at the show. About as good a turnout as they're going to have. And also in the night, they had other title changes. La Rebellion beat Hawks Aerie to retain the NWA World Tag Team Championships. Camille defeated Chelsea Green and Colin King to retain the NWA World's Women's Championship. Kerry Morton defeated Homicide in the rematch to become the new NWA World Junior Heavyweight Champion. Kerry Morton's got a future. There's something about him that works. And I'll tell you, there were some other people that have in that group that do work out, that are not that bad. So when I look at what the card had, Mims over Anthony Andrews, didn't watch that. They had a bunch of pre-shows. Slime, SZNN, Voodoo Cow, and Jay Spade over the Miserably Faithful. Anthony Mayweather, the Pope, JTG over Alex Taylor, Jack Stain, and Mercurio. And Jordan Clearwater over AJ Kazana. And the fourth match for the NWA World Television Champion. So Jordan Clearwater is now NWA TV Champion. Then you had Max the Impaler over Natalia Markova in a Voodoo Queen casket match. Davey Richards over Colby Carino in a good, short MLW National Openweight Championship match. Question Mark versus the Question Mark 2. And they had that match, whatever. Wasn't much for me. Thrillly Silas Mason over Odinson in a singles match. And Silas Mason being pushed really high. There's a lot of promise with that guy, it looks like. There's definitely a character behind there, and there's some interest. And listen, they are now positioning some younger players. Billy Corgan is positioning some younger players now, which he hasn't had too many. He has Scion. He has the Fixers. He has the not the Fixers, but he has the Spectaculars. He has Kerry Morton. And there's some names here. And also on the young end, you got Ella Envy, Kenzie Page, Pretty Empowered. I like the fact that he's getting some younger players in here. And it's that older demographic where some of these older stars that are out here, they're kind of getting out. But what needs to happen in that NWA, in the National Wrestling Alliance, we need some new blood in the world title picture. It just can't be old people. There has to be somebody that can put up there. And it's because of the fact of the prestige of the World's Heavyweight Championship that, it's kind of that tradition that an older, established veteran holds the belt. They're doing it right now for Tyrus because he's been there for a long time. He's been everything that they need to have him be over there in that company. And he's at a very important gimmick with Austin Idol Entertainment. So like that part is very important. And that's also for that company. Austin Idol Entertainment is like the lead faction, and Tyrus holds a title. Scion holds the national open. He holds the national championship. That's what they need to do. So it makes all the change. EC3 over Tom Latimer in a disqualification. There's a lot more to that story that can be said. La Rebellion, once again, continues to be the NWA World Tag Team Champions. And again, it wasn't a bad show. It wasn't NWA 75 or 74, excuse me. It wasn't that, but the show was definitely watchable. You got some younger stars. They're building them up. And that's what they got to do. With Impact, they have some younger stars, but it's also in that same vein, like, you got to have some younger stars for us to pay attention and not focus so much on some of the veteran talent that are coming in. But I think Kerry Morton is very promising. I do believe that Scion is very promising. Camille is, the top star now in the company. Tyrus, I would say, is right underneath Camille. Camille is the brightest star in that company right now. Not a question. If there was anybody that would be picked up first and foremost by any company right now that's under the NWA banner, because Matt Cardona is a free agent, I think it would be Camille. And there'd be any company, if she was available, they would pick her up. They would pick her up pretty quickly. So anyway, I wanted to leave that, but that's what Hard Times 3 was. Now let's move along into what we have going on tonight. We got to talk about, we're going to go ahead and talk now about AEW. Because I haven't taken much time to talk about what they've been doing in terms of what the company's doing right now. They set up Full Gear. They got a full card. Good stuff. Great matches coming up. They got a full card. Another 4-hour card plus to come this Saturday. And I will do a post show for that this Saturday night. WrestlingIsReal.com, which is where you find the show. You can subscribe. You can find all the subscription links for Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and all that. And also, you can find all the social media links for the show. The video and audio portions of the program are all right there for you. And that's it. It's really simple. So, with that said, Full Gear is the night where MJF should be crowned World Heavyweight Champion. Everything's set up for it. Now, is he going to come out as a champion becoming a heel or a face? I don't have a problem with him being the face champion right now. I think he's been positioning himself as a face in this feud with Jon Moxley. He has turned. He might be a tweener right now, but I feel like he's turned. But MJF still has the fire. Some of that fire as a heel still has the intensity. And it works. And he basically took a lot taken care of when it comes to the firm to confront Jon Moxley head to head. Jon Moxley came out and fumbled a couple times in the promo, but still got the word and got the message across. They sold the match. The match has been sold. this is a great match to come up. It's finally good to see this here and to see MJF finally at the spot at the right time, which is another thing I think is very important. You could have done it where CM Punk could have been beaten, but no. At this point in time, CM Punk out of the picture opens the door for MJF to be here, because I think eventually that was what was going to happen. That CM Punk would eventually have to confront MJF, and MJF could have won the belt off of him. But we're not going to see that. Regardless if CM Punk would have behaved better in the locker room and could have handled things better with the backstage stuff, maybe that would happen, but still we already know that the guy was injured. Wasn't going to happen. So with that said, fast forward, the Elite are coming back, and now they're going to get to go back after the Trios titles. So they were completely gone for pay-per-view, but from All Out all the way to here. And 3 months away, that's, a couple months away is good, but they automatically just came right back. And people are going to be happy about that. It's good to see the Elite back once again. And the suspension's done. They were off TV. Then they started building them back up. And now they're here. It'll be nice to see them back. And that is now the full crux of the company and who they have. There are still some stars that are not being put up to that main roster like we right now. We haven't seen Rush. Rush is still around, but we don't see Andrade. We have not seen Andrade. We have not seen Miro. Like, there's a number of stars they have that are real part-timers, and I'm not sure what the status is or what they're going to do. Like, we know some stars are there that we'd like to see back. Malachi Black and the House of Black, we haven't seen them yet, but they're supposedly returning. We'd like to see them back at some point. And I hope what the AEW does, going into Revolution, let's shuffle out some acts. We need to shuffle some out. We could definitely bring back House of Black. We could definitely bring back Miro. We could bring up some other names and just let's do a little shuffling around, because it'll be important. But there are some things that are being done for the purpose of this pay-per-view to make sure that people are really standing out. Some really important moments. The return of the Elite to go after the Trios title, which they won and were stripped of. And then you have coming up the Eliminator tournament, which has some pretty good names there in the match. We'll see how that works out. Another match with Swerve in Their Glory and the Acclaimed, which, that's is that the third time they faced each other? Which is good. Like, that tag team division right now, the Trios division has their own thing. And the tag team titles, we don't have FTR out there, which is unfortunate. They're not on pay-per-view to fight, which is another group that should be out here, but we don't know what's going on and why they're being held off right now as much as they are, which is unfortunate. But I guess they don't want to have them out there just to have them out there. FTR is special, and to see them go after the titles at some point is what we want them to do. Same thing goes for the titles they have right now, that we want to be able to see titles being defended on these pay-per-views. The TNT title is not being defended tonight, or it's not going to be defended on Saturday night. And it's unfortunate we're not going to have that. And, we also don't have, as far as I know, I don't think we have anything with Samoa Joe, which they've been building up that right there. And if I'm correct, if I'm looking at this card right, I don't see anything about the Jeff Jarrett Sting scenario, where Jeff Jarrett is accompanying Jay Lethal's band of brothers from the Ring of Honor sector to take on Sting, Darby Allin, and the rest there. We're not getting that yet. So there's a lot of storylines here. We have to just wait and see where we're going to go. There's a lot going on. Like, it's a very busy AEW. I'll tell you that I've kind of dropped off on Rampage. I have not been keeping up with it. I have not kept up on Dark or Dark Elevation. I just feel like, there were some other things that were going on that I just got preoccupied by, but that's what happened. Those programs are, I can miss those. It's unfortunate because I would probably enjoy it, but they're not priorities. And they have good matches on Rampage, but you know what? By 10 o'clock, I'm going to the movies. Last couple weekends I've done it. I went to Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. It was okay. It's a sequel. Wasn't going to be better than the first. And I don't remember to go ahead and put it back on when I'm on the way home because it's 2:00 in the morning. I'm just going to go ahead and just fall in the bed. So this is all going on. AEW is stuck in their ways. I would like to see them actually utilize their roster better on all the other shows. Like Dark and Dark Elevation, I wish they would make those shows. I think Dark and Dark Elevation don't have to be all squash matches. That's what I mean. At least Elevation shouldn't be. Elevation should have room for some other matches. And then I think we have Rampage. I don't know, man. I mean, Rampage, you could tell, like, the numbers are not great. Like, that Friday 10 o'clock spot is just bad. It's too bad they can't move it to another night. I wish it was on Saturday nights. I really do. I mean, I guess we're not going to put it at prime time. But can we put it somewhere else? Because, like, I don't know what purpose it serves. But it doesn't do much here. Like, if you put it at, like, the 6:05, like the 6 or 7 o'clock on Saturday nights, maybe there. I don't know, but, or Sunday nights at 7 o'clock. Like, that's something like Rampage could be like a Sunday Night Heat and lead it into pay-per-views. But they're not going to do that either. So, they have the time. I just don't know what they're going to do with that time. The same thing goes with Battle of the Belts. Like, I might miss those too, because they've also been not as important. Like, Dynamite is the important show. That's the show you have to watch, because you're going to be able to keep up with everything going on with Full Gear and the pay-per-view build-up as long as you watch Dynamite. And you got to keep up, because, of course, certain storylines just don't stay around. They're going to keep changing. I don't like to be the one that bashes AEW. Everybody else does that. That's like, you know, that's the that's the Thursday morning quarterbacking that goes on everywhere else. And I understand everybody wants to do that and they have fun with it. Sure. But I don't like that shit. I do enjoy it, but you know what? I will say this. I'm not afraid to say this. Listen, on this program, you know, my platform, and I will say something that's a little bit different. You know, I do feel like that across the board, we're not getting anything that's like overly shocking. We're getting above average wrestling at basically every promotion we're getting right now on television. The ones that I actually pay attention to. Okay. When it comes to WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, Ring of Honor, NWA, MLW. Yeah. I'm getting some good wrestling. MLW is back. It's good. I like it. I got to watch the new episode. I'm not used to that Pro Wrestling TV thing yet. And I appreciate MLW putting some clips up there on their YouTube channel, but I always forget to go to Pro Wrestling TV. I'm not getting used to that yet. I got to get used to it, and it's just not easy. I don't even remember what night it's on or when they drop it. Anyways. So there's that. And the shows, like I said, are fine. But I'm not getting anything where, like, wrestling is just blowing my mind right now. The pay-per-views have been good, right? WWE's pay-per-views have been pretty good. Can't complain about that. The Logan Paul story at Crown Jewel was wonderful. And it also just stood above and beyond everything else that was going on. And WWE's brought on a lot of talent. Their TV shows are pretty good. The TV product's been fine. I mean, they continue to get a little bump up on the ratings. They're starting to build them back up, even though when the Monday Night Football's in, which means that the base audience, they are still trying to go and trickle back in. So there wasn't a complete abandonment, or they might be adding some new viewers. Maybe that's what they're going to have. Because once Monday Night Football goes away in January, I mean, do we get the numbers by the Royal Rumble to come back up to around 2 million users for Raw? Because that's the question. I mean, in the certain trajectory, I would imagine that Raw could get over 2 million viewers by the time we get to second week of January. When we are on the road to the Royal Rumble, the road to WrestleMania, WrestleMania season will be in, and I think it'll do really well. And so far, we are in the off season, but it doesn't feel much like an off season. AEW's got their stuff going on. Always big pay-per-views when they're up and going. We got Ring of Honor's Final Battle coming up. And we'll have Survivor Series coming up. So it's good. And I'm glad to see that Survivor Series is going to be the same as it has been. And the other ones are not going to be the same way either. So I'm glad for all of that. Now, when it comes to MJF, I want to bring this up here because there was a story from eWrestling News that brought up MJF and the way they kind of put it together. Andrew Ravens wrote this, who also writes for WrestlingNews.co. I'll take the story right here. because MJF has been very vocal outside of being in the ring. And so Andrew Ribbon starts off and talks about how AEW's had injuries, fights, suspensions, and backstage drama. For MJF, he thinks he can be a leader that AEW talent can look up to, and sent out an interesting tweet regarding the darkness has been over the promotion. And he says that this Saturday, Full Gear, MJF will face Jon Moxley for the AEW World Heavyweight title. Quote, "There's been a shadow casted over AEW by a bunch of fucking bullshit. We are closer than ever to stepping out of the darkness and into the light. We have the roster. We have the platform. Now all we need is stability, change, and leadership. We needed the devil. I'm ready." And he's right. MJF has been consistently well. I mean, he is consistently well. This is good. Now, some people might not feel that way. They might say, oh, this was not a good go-home show. But the matches are going to be good. There's not even a question for that part. I enjoy it. So there's that part to look at and see what's going to come up. And then we look at what we have coming up now for Full Gear. And there's a lot we could go and get into when it comes to that. Let's get into the matches themselves. I don't think there was anything else I wanted to bring up on AEW here. No, we're going to go right into it. Here we go. AEW Full Gear preview and predictions. Right off the bat. Oh, so I'm sorry. We do have Sting and Darby Allin versus Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal. It was one of the last matches added. But Sting, Darby Allin, Jeff Jarrett. Listen, I mean, Jeff Jarrett can still go. Sting will still go. Let those guys do something at it. This should be a fun match. You could start off with this match, I guess. You could start it somewhere in the middle. But it should be good. And I will take Sting and Darby Allin on the win. I'm wondering if Darby Allin's really gotten much of an advantage by having Sting at ringside. I mean, Darby Allin's been winning all the way through. And Sting has not overshadowed Darby Allin either. They've basically been equals. And I think Sting's enjoying the time with Darby Allin. They've been good. They've been really good together. Saraya versus Dr. Britt Baker DMD. There is no title on the line, but Saraya, I don't see how they don't let her win the first time out. But I mean, we're all going to be curious, how well can Saraya work in the ring? I mean, she's been rusty. I mean, not saying that she hasn't been training, but like, it's been a long time since she was in the ring. And then how much time since she got cleared has she been taking bumps and getting herself back up to ring shape? I mean, she's in great shape. She looks great. Let's see how she does. I hope it does really well. I actually thought that last week, the promo that Saraya put out there, very heartfelt, better than any promo she did. Better than the first promo she did the first time out. That heartfelt was great. And she let it all out. That was passionate. That was powerful. And then Dr. Britt Baker come in. She's the same way. Another passionate, powerful. So they're bringing out the full guns and some reality into this mix. They definitely put some shoot work in this. That's going to make this match good. So I'm going to be curious about that. I'll take Saraya winning over Dr. Britt Baker and a rare defeat of Dr. Britt Baker DMD. The World Trios Championship Death Triangle versus the Elite. I'm going to take the Elite on this with them coming back. I think they just want to position things back. I do. And we could see Death Triangle and the Elite go after each other going forward. That would be good too. Steel Cage match, Jungle Boy versus Luchasaurus. They've been just kind of just teasing along this. They've only had so much back and forth actual physicality leading up to this match. But we're waiting. Just have to see where they're going to go with it next. But I like it so far. Where they're going to go, it's Jungle Boy should get the win on this. Like, that's what we need to have happen now. The TBS title, they've had that storyline. It's been mostly a Rampage thing where Nyla Rose has been holding on to the belt. But I think Jade Cargill wins again. So she'll be like, what? I don't know, 37, 38 now, something like that. I forget. But Jade Cargill, they're going to keep her strong. I don't think Nyla Rose is going to be a match for her, but they're going to have a longer match. And I think Nyla Rose will have some chance to work out there and see what she does. Plus, you have to find out if Marina Shafir is going to be involved or Vicky Guerrero. And then the baddies. Like, that's going to be going on too. Ring of Honor World Championship, you got a 4-way match. Chris Jericho versus Bryan Danielson versus Claudio Castagnoli versus Sammy Guevara. So you had the tag team match tonight, and Jericho and Guevara get the win. Now we're getting to the 4-way, and I don't know if Jericho holds on to this. I'm going to take Bryan Danielson to be the Ring of Honor World Champion. Again. Will that be his third time, right? I forget if it's second or third. I think it's his third. I could go look it up, but I'm not going to bother. That's okay. Bryan Danielson, his first title, Ring of Honor World Champion. I think that happens. Interim World title, AEW Interim Women's Championship, Toni Storm versus Jamie Hayter. I'm taking Jamie Hayter on the win. I hope she does. It's about time. And we can see what happens here where things go along and move along forward. I would love to see where they go. I'm very excited for that. Tag team titles, the Acclaimed are so over. Swerve in Our Glory, we're getting that match again. And I will take the Acclaimed to beat Swerve in Our Glory. And I think Swerve, Strickland, and Keith Lee will split up as a result. The World Championship Eliminator Tournament Triple Threat Semifinal. Lance Archer versus Ricky Starks versus Brian Cage. This is tough, but I'm going to take Ricky Starks to take on Ethan Page in the World Championship Eliminator Tournament. I like that right there. Ricky Starks and Ethan Page. And I don't think that's a match I've seen on that show, but that's not an AEW feud we've seen yet or a match we've seen yet. I want to see that. And I also think that Ethan Page will beat said opponent. I think Ethan Page is being set up for the world title. And why not? I like Ethan Page, and I think he'll be great in this role. And like, if you want to have like a starter wrestler that's going to go ahead and take on the world champion, who I think is going to be MJF at the end of the day. At the end of Full Gear, I think MJF is world heavyweight champion. I'm saying it right now. I'm positive. And I think MJF will have his first opponent be Ethan Page, because it'll be part of the firm that will go after him. That storyline is already built in and ready to go. Let's talk WWE right now, because they got a few things they're trying to do. They obviously have not stopped looking for talent and bringing them back into the fold. Triple H has had no shortage of people he wants to bring back. There's a couple of the names now that look like on the list that could be considered all the way through. So let's talk about that. I'll talk about Nick Aldis in a minute because he's part of this conversation. But one star that Triple H right now is considering to bring back, and we're hearing a lot about it, is Matt Cardona and Chelsea Green. But Chelsea Green initially, and then we'd hear Matt Cardona would probably come in as well. So WrestleVotes reported that Triple H is looking at bringing back Matt Cardona, and also would be extending an offer to Cardona's wife and former WWE star, Chelsea Green. So WrestleVotes says, quote, "I've heard, because he's done on the indies, that Hunter's a fan of his. Cardona's not shy about being a lifelong fan, and Hunter likes people that don't shy away from growing up in this business. He would 100% take Mark Cardona back, but I don't know if that offer's been extended. And if he comes in with Chelsea Green, I don't know. I know he really wants Chelsea back, and I know that Shawn Michaels loves Chelsea Green. So if they want her, you would think they would make a 2-for-1 offer. I would assume she comes back. From what I'm being told, they do like her, specifically Shawn. And although they would be working main roster, from what I'm told, she's got supporters there. Yeah. Now, Matt Cardona has actually said, and Give Me Sport gets the hat tip on this, which is the most important thing. For Matt Cardona to come back, a possible return to WWE, it would only happen if he could go back under his real name and not the previous gimmick of Zack Ryder. Correct. Done. Deal. Let's do that. Let's see that happening, because that is exactly what we want to see happening here. It's the right thing to do. And I hope they do it. So that's good. Matt Cardona, Chelsea Green, we could see them sometime next year. That will be good. Give them some time and then just bring them back in. We'll just find a way for a storyline for them. Because honestly, nothing against Karrion Kross and Scarlett Bordeaux. But I think that the power couple is really Matt Cardona and Chelsea Green. Matt Cardona right away could be elevated pretty far up the ladder. Like, he should be up to semi-main event. Like, he should be at the level of where he's going after the U.S. title, that Bobby Lashley, Austin Theory type of tier. That's where he can be right now. And I think it'll be a good place for him anyway. If they decide to go that route, and with those free agents, those are good, safe bets. Absolutely. it's not a bad idea to go and do that and bring them on board. The other name, which I was going to bring up before, and I really think is important, when you think that we heard after Crown Jewel that Logan Paul himself talked about how he had sustained injuries, and now Jake Paul is coming back out and saying that the injuries are not as bad as he thought. So we're not going to see him out for a long time, he says. Logan announced that after Crown Jewel, he suffered a torn MCL, meniscus, potentially a torn ACL in his right knee. And the injuries occurred midway into the main event. But the Zone Boxing spoke with Jake Paul, and he says the injuries are not as bad as originally thought. He knows that Logan did not tear his ACL and is currently doing rehab in LA. And Jake said he thought it was supposed to be an ACL, but it turned to be the MCL and meniscus, which is better. And he's rehabbing and hopes for the best. And Jake wants to do more work for WWE following its interactions with Bloodline. And one of the matches he's asked for, I think for WrestleMania 39 for LA, he wants John Cena. I like that match. I like that matchup very much. And I mean, if John Cena is available, I mean, shit, him and Jake Paul, I mean, between Logan Paul, I like it. I like that match. That's another good match to have on a feature night. So that helps. That wouldn't be a bad match. At least to fill WrestleMania for another year to get LA to go. More importantly, is The Rock going to make it to take on Roman Reigns? Because that is the match that everybody's expecting. We have to see that. But the name I think everybody needs to worry about, that I think we will see at some point, because it's the one free agent out there now that has never been in this company. And there's no reason he couldn't be. There's no reason. The National Treasure Nick Aldis. And the pedigree he has built. Look. He has been a star in many companies. Impact Wrestling, they made him a champion. They made him world champion. They put him in Ring of King. He was world champion there. And then we move into the NWA, the National Wrestling Alliance. And when Billy Corgan decides to bring this organization back from the rubble and legitimize it, they rested on the arms of the National Treasure, Nick Aldis. Now, it's been a couple of years. 2019? It's been 3 years since that real heyday of Nick Aldis being the champion on Power, and then a couple of years before holding on to that belt at NWA 70. And then having that belt and defending that title a number of times. I think it was something to be said where when Camille was brought into the mix and she was accompanying Nick Aldis out there, that was the heyday for NWA, because Nick Aldis and Camille, that was just it was just a power couple. The item, and Camille didn't speak. This tall, classy, beautiful blonde, and just not knowing what she does, and she just looked like a not a fitness model. It looked like she really can pack some real muscle. Very muscle bound, strong, intimidating, would kick the shit out of me and every other guy out there. And then I remember when they brought her back in, and then they had her starting to talk because she has a drawl, Southern accent. And nobody gave a shit because we like Camille. She's great. She's one of the best women's wrestlers out there. Her, Jordan Grace, they don't get the kind of credit they deserve. Now, they are in the PW5, the PW Women's chart that recently came out. That's great. And they should be. They definitely are in that contention. As I said, Camille is amazing. She's got the presence, got the look. She wrestles really well in the ring. She's good. Right? One time. Camille. Good stuff. Now, with that said, Nick Aldis, I mean, this whole thing right now, his commentary with the NWA, it's different. Now, I guess what we're getting this week is we're not getting so much of the bashing of the NWA that we were getting before. It's just Nick Aldis has his grievances, and he's putting it out there. Now, we know we had the talk about how one of the things that caused everything like this was because of the fact that Nick Aldis was upset that his wife, Mickie James, and the comments were being made about Empower and about how, if Billy Corgan wants to do another Empower, he wants it to be a really world-renowned event. And that maybe the talent that was brought on board wasn't that world-class event that it could have been, but he's not ruling it out. William Patrick Corgan wants to do another Empower, and I hope he does. That would be great. But I think he does want to do one of those things where it is more of a super show and get other organizations involved, and that's the part. And I agree with that. So with that said, Nick Aldis says now, in an interview with Sportskeeda, he says that he wants to explore free agency, and he's pushed back on claims he was working on an angle to get a better deal elsewhere. So this is what Nick Aldis said to Sportskeeda. Free agency. That's it, dude. I know it's been suggested that there must be something else. Truthfully, I want to explore free agency. I just want to be free of a contract and certain brand commitment, a sort of branding for any kind of, for a minute, and just see what comes next. It was time to just move on. That's all I have. I have businesses. I have Legacy Sports Nutrition. I have some other businesses we are working on. As far as wrestling at this point, I feel like I can deliver wherever. I just love the business, and I feel like I can contribute to a pretty high level. But at the same time, if I'm going to spend time away from my son, I'm going to take bumps. I got to be feeling it. It's got to be something I'm passionate about. I got to be feeling it. I've got to feel like it's going somewhere. There's one company he hasn't gone to, and he's still in his prime, 36 years old. Think about that. You know, it's really something where, like, I think we're all kind of surprised at Nick Aldis because of the career he's had, because he's been in front of us for a long time. You understand that? Like, when you think of his career, let's just look at his resume. His resume is pretty expansive, excuse me. He joined TNA in 2008. He was in the British Independent Circuit in 2004. 7 years in TNA. He became the TNA World Heavyweight Champion, the first British-born world champion in the history of the company, a 3-time tag team champion with TNA, the TNA World Tag Team titles, and the IWGP Tag Team titles. And then when they ran the Ring King set in India with Jeff Jarrett had Nick Aldis as his champion. And, or it was Magnus, of course, as we knew him over there. But then Nick Aldis tried to go to GFW, Global Force Wrestling. And, you know, he tried to do something over there. He would be the inaugural GFW Global Champion. There's my thing with this. I absolutely believe that Nick Aldis, with his relationship with Jeff Jarrett, who's now, well, no, Jeff Jarrett's over in AEW now. I don't know he goes over there. I absolutely believe that Nick Aldis goes to WWE. I really feel like Triple H, the team there could absolutely see that guy over there. You know, obviously they don't have their problem with international stars. I mean, for him, he works. It's really good. And right now, in his prime, 36 years old, and he has a lot of time in the ring. 2008. So we're talking about, he was 22 years old back then. And this guy's been out there killing it for a long time. So that's good. Like, I mean, he can go with whatever he wants. He's done a lot in this mix, and he's been out there. There's no reason why this guy never goes over to that company, because that's the only place he has left. Now, one of the things that have been talked about, that World of Sport is looking to kind of restart again, which is a great brand. And they're trying to talk to Nick Aldis and Mickey James to go ahead and see if they'll go ahead and do the same thing they did with the NWA, take their intellectual property, their brand, and get them over there to build up World of Sport once again in Europe, which would be nice. So with that said, I think that they could definitely do something with him. But I think what has to happen now is Nick Aldis, you know, sure, he's getting the interviews out here. He's making this point. Now he says it's free agency. I'm waiting to see if he's going to start seeing anything else to go on. But the thing is, he's kind of started to go away from talking about NWA. Like, whatever he's going to say about NWA, he's done. Like, he's talking about the release. But we take a story from Nick Hausman, who wrote about this a couple days ago. And he goes along, and Nick Hausman talked with Nick Aldis. And let's just go through the question and answer real quick. And he says that, you know, Nick, do you feel more buzz right now than you felt in any part of your career that you ever felt? I certainly want to say right at the top how appreciative I'm for everybody's support. he's grateful for the overwhelming message that seems to be that they can't wait to see what I do next. Then he's asked about the NWA release. Your contract comes up with them at the end of the year. Are you unable to negotiate or make a move until January? What can we expect? And he says, I had no intention of doing anything other than seeing out my contract. When I spoke with Sam Roberts, I said that was the way it was laid out. Minimum of 1 year. But after the 1 year term, it would go back to month. So I had to give 60 days notice. So basically, at the earliest possible time was my decision to, well, let's talk about why I decided to make it public. Because I know on the surface, a lot of people will say, well, why did he make it public? What's the point in that? If he wasn't trying to cause drama and trouble. Well, it's two reasons. One was so that I would be able to have open discussions with anybody else. And two, honestly, it was to get in front of what I knew was coming at the pay-per-view. And then talk about NWA from the fan perspective, because he said was, what do you think makes NWA toxic to you at the moment? And he said it was the fan sentiment. And Nick talked about the disregard for the fans. I'm not trying to get into the political stuff. That's not interesting to me. Politics in this country is very, very split, very divided, and I'm a centrist. However, I feel like as a brand, you should do best to be apolitical as well. It's not even really the meat of the matter. It's more about the audience that has been telling them one thing for a long time, and Billy specifically has been disregarding them, doing the complete opposite, almost out of spite. I think I'm in touch with the NWA audience as much as anybody, really more so than anybody, and the amount of communications I've had from fans, they're just pleading with me, please talk to him. Why is he doing this? Why is he doing that? What's happened to the show? Why is he doing this? And he says that he's deliberately going against what the fans are for. Just feels like a very spiteful approach. And I've made a promise to the audience since I've been with the NWA to go above and beyond, over-deliver. That, to me, was the basis of a success in the beginning, was under-promising and over-delivering. We couldn't compete in terms of resources or in terms of star power or in terms of production value. We had to compete in being a show that was really connected to our audience, and it feels like there was a deliberate move away from that. And Nick also makes reference that when Dave Lagana was let go because of the Time's Up movement, let's just be honest about that the product seemed to kind of shift. And it did. It absolutely did. But what are you going to do? Dave Lagana, if he was caught up in this shit and they let him go, it's obviously justified. Hey, we don't see Joey Ryan anymore. And then there was a thought about AEW. So Nick is asked about this. Doesn't say too much. He says that he did talk to Tony Khan very early on. But I wanted to go. I also wanted to wait until I had the NWA to a point where I felt they could function effectively. When that came around, the relationship between Tony and Billy had changed. I probably should have reached out sooner and had my own direct communication instead of trusting what was being told to me, what was potentially coming up around the road. Yeah, I don't know what happened there, but you know what? The truth is, it was the pandemic. Everybody was working with each other, and they all split up. It makes sense. Plus, when you're seeing certain stars being taken and kind of like picked off with Eddie Kingston and Thunder Rosa, yeah, I would probably be, Corgan probably felt like, you know, hey, you're taking my talent. It's some of that part that comes in. There's more what he says here. We're going to move along. He says there's unfinished business with Cody Rhodes. And that after All In, when we had the rematch, things were a little more challenging. Cody gave his notice to Ring of Honor, and Ring of Honor was not as willing to give everything that he wanted. But they wanted to do a trilogy. So they had their NWA title matches, and then they had AEW All In. Great. So they're going to move along with that. And then they asked about, could they see the Cody Rhodes storyline, that feud, pan out in WWE? Well, he says, this will be the part gets taken and turned into a headline. Nick Aldis wants to wrestle Cody Rhodes in WWE. Of course I would. And I think that would tear the house down. We tore the house down in 2 matches. We had nothing but a YouTube show to build it. So I could only hope that with the tremendous resources and expertise of guys like Triple H involved in the process, that we wouldn't. I could only imagine we would be able to make nothing but money, but that's not up for me to say. That's up to me. And then there's also the thought process that he's a Triple H kind of guy. He says, I get told that a lot. He's never met him, doesn't know him, never had a conversation. I would love to, but no. I couldn't tell you what the dynamic is. I like to think I was on his radar, if nothing else. Just given the fact there's so many guys whose opinion I think up there is what the most valuable opinion in the business have endorsed me and spoken up for me. Billy's taken it very personally, and obviously decided to try to go out on his way to harm my reputation. And he goes on and says that, talks about Harley Race, talks about Bruce Pritchard, and there was a point where Bruce and Nick had their issues in TNA. There probably was that kind of thing, which that's probably happened. But I mean, Bruce Pritchard, I don't think is that much of a factor here now anyway. Do we even hear about him at all? And there's more to it. There's a longer story, but we're just going to leave it there. And I think there's something to be said about where Nick Aldis could be a potential person to move over. I really do. I'll just leave it there because I just like where things are going with it. Nick Aldis would be a good move to move him over into WWE. I mean, if you're going to go anywhere, let's see him there. He deserves to be in that spot at least once. And Triple H can make the shot right now, and I don't think anybody would be surprised if he did. Let's bring in Nick Aldis. I'm all for it. I'm going to leave it there. We're going to go 45 minutes. That's it. They've been short shows, man. We're just not in these long rants. I just don't have to right now. And anyway, I got to do a show this weekend. We got Full Gear coming up. Already did the preview predictions. We're going to leave it there. Thanks for listening in, finding the show. Come back. Enjoy AEW Full Gear coming up this Saturday. We will do a post show right here at WrestlingControl.com. Until then, come back for another Wrestling Control podcast because wrestling needs us.
Thank you for listening to the Wrestling is Real podcast. You can find all previous episodes at WrestlingIsReal.com or subscribe to the show on all major podcast outlets, including Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Follow the King of Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at King of Podcasts, and search King of Podcasts on YouTube, or type youtube.com/JBRASCO951. This has been a presentation of the King of Podcasts Radio Network.